MAGA Republican Congresswoman, anti-Semite, and conspiracy theorist Marjorie Taylor Greene suffered immediate, widespread, and richly deserved backlash after a series of unhinged social media posts insinuating that a mysterious they somehow artificially created Hurricane Helene specifically to kill Republican voters to influence the outcome of the 2024 election. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several things to look at from Marjorie Taylor Greene, an actual person who wields state power, a sitting member of Congress, which is a further indictment of the American electorate. Prepare yourselves for maximum crazy. So as you know, Hurricane Helene has devastated the Southeast. It's killed hundreds of people. It's devastated multiple states. The Biden-Harris administration worked proactively and promptly and responsibly with state and local authorities and are still doing so to try to save lives and communities such that even Republican governors during an election year have publicly given them plaudits for their reaction, for their support. You would think somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who represents a state which has been affected by Hurricane Helene, would use her position, her power, and her responsibility responsibly to help people. Well, instead, she's taking to social media to spread ridiculous, unhinged, and potentially anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. So in one tweet, she says, this is a map of hurricane-affected areas with an overlay of electoral map by political party. Shows how hurricane devastation could affect the election. And she talks about basically, how so much red counties, so many red counties, red areas, conservative areas were affected by Hurricane Helene, although obviously a lot of urban blue areas as well. She is insinuating that the hurricane would have an effect on the outcome by taking Republican lives and devastating Republican infrastructure. Now, that's potentially sinister enough, except she followed it up with something even more direct and unhinged. Yes, they can control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done. Now, again, I want to emphasize, this is not a parody account. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene, an actual person, a sitting member of the Republican Congress. This person is one of the biggest Republicans in the country, one of the most powerful and influential Republicans in the country, one of their best fundraisers. This person is not an outlier in the GOP. This person is the future of the GOP. Just want to make that very clear, okay? She is as much the poster child of the GOP, as far as I'm concerned, as Donald Trump is, okay? Now, as I said on Twitter, liars, morons, and centrists are really quick to say both sides are the same. However, only one side says stuff like this, that a mysterious they can control the weather, and anyone who suggests otherwise is lying, and they must have done it in order to kill Republican voters to influence the outcome of the 2024 election. Really unhinged stuff. Of course, one of the questions is, who is they? Is they the Biden administration? Is they Democrats? Is they Jews? Because you may recall, and we'll get into this, Marjorie Taylor Greene has made some really unhinged anti-Semitic conspiracy theories in the past. So I'm not quite sure who she's talking about here, and I don't think anyone else is either. I'm not even sure she knows. As Mediaite talks about this and kind of collects some of the examples, mass idiocy. Marjorie Taylor Greene brutally mocked for claiming they control the weather. Claims of nefarious weather control have become somewhat common in the fever swamps of internet conspiracy theories. In January, close Trump ally and Marjorie Taylor Greene enemy, Laura Loomer claimed that the extreme cold impacting the GOP Iowa caucus might be the result of Nikki Haley's alleged deep state friends. Greene, like Loomer, has long spun many baseless conspiracy theories based on tragic events, including claiming fires in California were caused by Jewish-controlled space lasers, questioning if a plane really hit the Pentagon on 9/11, and suggesting that mass shootings are false flag operations. Okay? So here's some examples of backlash that MTG has received. This person is in Congress. This ignorance, lunacy is while we're having a government teetering and lurching. Her stupidity is a disease. She's not alone either. Who do we blame? Well, folks, we blame disinfo ecosystems like here on X, and we blame voters, mass idiocy, stupidity. And this is a former Republican congressman, Denver Riggleman. Jared Moskowitz, freshman Democratic congressman. He, of course, is well known for mocking Marjorie Taylor Greene. They have sparred repeatedly in Congress. When I interviewed him at the DNC, he made it abundantly clear that whereas he's able to get along with a lot of Republicans outside of these hearings, Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the few who is irredeemable. And I see it, right? This is not a performative front, which would be bad enough. She is sincerely this stupid, this bigoted, this anti-Semitic, and this conspiracy brain rotten. So he says they, and he posts a GIF of, of Moses parting the Red Sea. U.S. Representative Brendan Boyle, this is a member of Congress of the United States, for real, no joke. Nick Gillespie, yes, they can. And he posts an image of Donald Trump using Sharpie when he was president to alter the trajectory of a hurricane. Brian Schatz, Hakeem Jeffries should be Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. Enjoy your weekend campaigning, everybody. Totally agree. Sam Stein says, who is they? Jedgir, my pronouns are now they, them, because I want to control the weather. Brandon Wolf, these same unserious, unqualified people insist that spewing emissions into the atmosphere can't possibly be impacting our climate. That's a really good point. She simultaneously denies the reality of anthropogenic climate change, this idea that human beings have any serious impact on the weather and climate, while at the same time suggesting that, again, a mysterious they, Democrats, Jews, Jewish Democrats, I'm not entirely sure, also control the weather such that they can artificially manufacture a hurricane and deploy it in such a way as to maximize Republican fatalities to change the outcome of an election. Jason Hart, periodic reminder that when this woman stood on stage with Holocaust-denying white supremacist Nick Fuentes after speaking at an event hosted by Fuentes, J.D. Vance said she did nothing wrong. Jack Pitney, darn it, my in-laws still haven't shown me their space lasers. George Conway, ex-husband of Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway and prominent Trump critic, says, your point is what? That Moses parted the Red Sea? Are you saying he had a space laser? And so on and so forth. But folks, you get the point. It's really unhinged stuff from a sitting member of Congress. Can I emphasize this enough? You know, going back to my tweet, making fun of centrists and morons, I like to do that a lot because I don't think I've ever met a smart centrist, or certainly not an honest one. You hear stuff like this all the time. Both sides are the same. Both sides have their extreme, oh my God, people on both sides have said some really unhinged stuff. And that is true. It's actually true. Democratic Party is not perfect. The left isn't perfect. Progressives, liberals, none of us are perfect. But for that to be the end of the analysis, that both sides are at fault, that both sides have flaws, and not continuing the analysis is really dishonest, stupid, and lazy. It would be like suggesting, well, a shoplifter and a murderer, they're both criminals, and then just moving on, not taking the time to point out the meaningful difference between these two things. It would be like, you or I having a conversation with someone with stage 4 cancer while we have the cold and say, oh my God, man, we're both sick. Yeah, but there are meaningful differences. I would much rather have a cold than stage 4 cancer, right? It would be really dishonest, insensitive, and stupid to suggest that someone with a cold is as sick as somebody with stage 4 cancer, right? And just so on and so forth. We can recognize meaningful differences between two things. There is no Democratic congressperson. There's no Democratic politician who says stuff as unhinged and dishonest and untrue and conspiratorial as what Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan and others like them say. There is a disproportionate locus of stupidity and conspiracism within the Republican Party that has no counterpoint and no counterpart in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is better. Their politicians are just better. Flawed, sure. Subject to criticism, absolutely. But if you suggest, or if anybody suggests, that both parties are equally problematic or even comparably problematic, they're either really dumb or they're lying to you. And this is just further proof of that. Other people have commented, after blaming wildfires on Jewish space lasers, MTG now claims they control the weather and started Hurricane Helene to impact the election. The same they that's been blamed for immigration, stolen elections, and more anti-Semitism threatens our democracy. Again, I think it's perfectly fair to question whether or not Marjorie Taylor Greene is referring to the Biden-Harris administration, Democrats, or just Jews, because she has cast these aspersions and made these unhinged conspiracy theories about Jewish people in the past. Why should we give MTG the benefit of the doubt? Tara Dublin made this really funny response to MTG on TikTok, and I do want to share it with you. It's about a minute long. Pretty funny stuff.
Would you like to see the stupidest thing that you'll probably see all day? Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks we can control the weather to affect red states, but not blue states. No, really. She really does. What do you say to something that fucking stupid? What do you say? I mean, when something that offensively stupid happens, I feel compelled to call her. I laughed so much on that voicemail. I just laughed because how stupid do you have to be to think that Joe Biden is like a Bond villain with a weather machine who can control the weather to win elections? Jack Smith, please arrest her. Please arrest her immediately.
Unfortunately, her stupidity and her conspiracism and even, unfortunately, her anti-Semitism, these are not criminal. This person is going to get reelected, most likely. She's been elected multiple times. She is one of the best fundraisers in the Republican Party. She's a close ally and confidant of Donald Trump, the leader, the cult leader of the Republican Party. She was a close ally of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy when he was Speaker. Now, she feuds with Mike Johnson, but that's because she thinks that Mike Johnson's insufficiently loyal to Donald Trump. Otherwise, I imagine they'd be best friends. Also point out, speaking of Trump, that you can't actually divorce this from Trump himself, because when Trump was president and even after he left office, he had some really unhinged notions about climate and the weather. First, he thinks climate change is a hoax. It's not. He says he has suggested before that perhaps hurricanes could be, neutralized by firing a nuke at it. Apparently, Trump also asked if China was shooting the United States with a hurricane gun to explain the increasing frequency of natural disasters in the United States. It could just be climate change. Could be climate change, maybe. Or, suppose you can't disprove the idea of a Chinese hurricane gun. This is really stupid. This is what I mean. And this party has, again, a 50% chance of winning the presidency, greater than 50% chance of taking back the Senate, and less than 50% chance, but still not entirely outside the realm of the possibility of controlling the House. Like, there's a timeline in the multiverse where after this election, this party, this man and his cultists, these people will control the United States government. So I beg you, if you're an eligible voter in the United States, and even if you don't totally agree with the Democrats, even if you have serious reservations about Democratic policy or Democratic rhetoric, can we just keep these objectively worse people out of office? Can we keep Trump and MTG out of office and people like them? Can we do that, please? And let's go back to normal. That'd be fun. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.